People think the worst sin is stealing. Some say it's lying. But I learned something worse. I learned that the worst sin is curiosity. Curiosity doesn't look dangerous. It feels like a small question sitting on your tongue. What really happened? It sounds harmless, like concern. But if you are not careful, curiosity becomes a knife. And when you finally cut into the truth, you may realize you were never ready for the blood that comes out. My name is Mary. Before this story, I was just a village girl who came to Lagos with one plastic box and too many prayers. I lost my mother when I was 17. My father left long before then. I worked wherever the day would pay. Nanny for 3 children who called me house girl. Cleaner in a shop that smelled like new shoes. Waitress in a canteen where the soup burnt my hands. And sometimes I slept in a corridor beside the staircase because the rent didn't wait for payday. So when the Peters family hired me, I felt like Grace found my address. A real room with a bed that didn't squeak. A uniform that smelled like starch and hope. A kitchen bigger than the whole compound I used to live in. I told myself every night, Mary, don't spoil this blessing. Keep your head down. Do your work. Don't see what you shouldn't see. But blessings come with tests you never studied for. Let me tell you about them. The family everyone in Lagos knew by name. Remy Peters, Adara Peters, and their only son, Daniel. People didn't just say they were rich. People said they were proof that hard work could marry destiny and give birth to a kingdom. The Peters group had hands in everything. Oil blocks in the Delta, a fleet of blue and silver tankers at the port, hotels with marble lobbies and slow music, a real estate arm building glass houses that looked like they floated. They had a logistics company, a private foundation that donated to schools, even a scholarship program that sent the best students abroad. If power had a family portrait in Lagos, the frame would carry their faces. Remy was the face of discipline, tall, calm, the kind of man whose handshake looked like a contract. Magazines called him the steward of legacy. Adara was the face of elegance. Every time she walked into a room, you could smell money and jasmine. She knew which fork to put on the left, which smile to give to cameras, which words to say that made people feel seen. And Daniel, 17, was the future. Photographers loved to catch him in a blazer at board luncheons or laughing on a charity football field with children in matching t-shirts. Inside their house, the floors were so white you were afraid to breathe on them. In the evenings, the staff moved like a dance we learned by heart. Chef humming with his wooden spoon, the driver polishing a car nobody would use that night, me folding napkins like small birds for a dinner that might not happen. My relationship with each of them had its own rhythm. With Remy, it was respectful distance.
Morning, Mary. Coffee ready?
Morning, sir. Just the way you like it. With Adora, there was kindness, yes, but also the kind of kindness that watched itself. She taught me things no one had time to teach me before.
Mary, iron silk at a lower heat. Mary, don't carry the tray with fear. Plates here, fear. Mary, if a guest complains, thank them before you fix it. Pride is allergic to thank you.
When she said those things, I felt seen. With Daniel, it was soft. He'd sit in the kitchen when I cooked and ask, "So, you really used to fetch water from the stream?" I'd laugh. Yes, and he'd build these strong arms. He would imitate my village accent and we'd both laugh until Chef chased him away with a dish towel. On his 17th birthday, he brought me a slice of cake before anyone else had cut theirs. "Because you're the one who reminds me to eat," he said. I kept the tiny gold candle from that cake in my drawer like a secret medal. So when I say I loved these people in my own small way, believe me,
I didn't love their money. I loved their humanity, the parts that leaked through their perfect photographs. The first storm cloud came on a night when the rain had hands. It beat the roof like it was collecting a debt. The front door opened and Remy walked in soaked, the kind of soaked that says the driver wasn't with him. His shirt was open at 2 buttons and his breath carried whiskey and something like fury. Adora was waiting halfway down the stairs, face tired but composed. "Remy, we need to talk," she said softly. He didn't stop. He didn't even look. He passed her, left rain on the marble, and shut himself in the guest room. After that, the changes were small. No more greetings for staff in the morning. No more 2 cups of coffee, just one that went cold on the table each day. He started coming home late, then later, then not at all. When he was home, he slept in the guest room. I'd hear him turn over at 3 a.m., then at 4 a.m. Like sleep was an enemy he kept fighting and losing to. Adora became a better actress. To visitors, she was the same. Hair immaculate, lipstick like a promise. But when the house exhaled, she would sit on the edge of the sofa, open the gallery on her phone, and scroll through old pictures of them laughing in sunlight. Sometimes she'd press 2 fingers to her eyes like she was holding them in place. I told myself, mind your business. But business has a way of walking into your ears even when your eyes are shut. The tabloids noticed things before staff admitted them. Power couple under pressure. Heir missing from charity gala. We would hide newspapers under the fruit bowl like bad report cards. One afternoon, Adora's closest friend came to visit. I brought them tea, Earl Grey, because that friend liked to pretend she was British. They sat in the smaller lounge, the room with the blue art that looked like rain.
"Ada, your husband looks like he's drowning," the friend said. Ada turned her cup twice and whispered, "There's nothing to say. Some truths destroy everything they touch." The sentence clinged in my chest. Some truths destroy everything they touch. That night, in my small room, I repeated it like a prayer and like a warning. I didn't know I was building the road to my own ruin. Do you know what suspicion feels like when it starts to live with you? It feels like checking the same locked door twice. It feels like standing at the end of a corridor and forgetting why you walked there. Remy began taking phone calls outside, even when the mosquitoes were feasting. Adara started keeping sleeping pills in a small glass beside her bed. Daniel began eating alone in his room with his headphones on. The house was full of people and empty at the same time. Then came the argument like thunder cracking the sky. "You can't keep shutting me out," Adara shouted down the corridor. "You lost the right 17 years ago," Remy's voice replied, low, dangerous. 17 years? Something in that number stabbed the air. The house swallowed the rest of their words. Then a door slammed so hard the painting above the console tilted. I stood there with a basket of folded towels and felt them grow heavy like stones. My mind said, leave it. My heart said, protect her. And curiosity said, find out. I wish I could blame the devil, but it was me. It was my hand that reached for the small phone with the cracked screen. It was my feet that crept down the hall after midnight. It was my breath I held as I slid the phone onto the shelf near the guest room door, camera facing the narrow gap, record button glowing red like a tiny sin. I whispered, if he's cheating, Madame deserves to know. Then I tiptoed away feeling like a thief in my own job. I didn't sleep. I lay there, counting the seconds, listening to the house breathe. At 5:12 a.m., I gave up pretending. I closed my door, sat on the floor with my back to the bed, and pressed play.
At first, just the house, making house sounds, the air conditioner humming like a low prayer. A distant clock arguing with itself. Then footsteps. Then a door sighing open. Then Remi's voice, not as a chairman, not as a husband, but as a man whose inside had been replaced with glass.
17 years, Adaora, he said. 17 years I've lived a lie. Please, lower your voice. Daniel is sleeping, she said, and her words had tears inside them already. Sleeping? You should be the one losing sleep, he said. And something fell. Maybe his hand on the dresser, maybe the future. You lied to me. You lied to everyone. Remi, please, do you know what today was supposed to be? He asked, and his voice was shaking. The lawyer brought Daniel's inheritance papers. The board requested a DNA verification for the company's records. Standard procedure, sir. I laughed. I told him my son doesn't need a test to prove his bloodline. But I did it anyway, Adaora. I did it to shut their mouths. I remember holding my breath. I remember hearing my own pulse in my ears like a drum calling war. And the result? His voice broke. 99.8% probability. Daniel is not my son. The silence that followed sat down on my chest. Then Adaora's breath tore, and she cried in a way that made me want to run into the room and hold a woman who would fire me for touching her. It was my fiancé's child, she choked out. He died before our wedding. I found out after the funeral. I couldn't face the shame, Remi. I couldn't lose everything again. You loved me. You said you'd protect me. I thought love could bury the past. So for 17 years, I've been raising another man's son, he whispered. And that whisper was louder than his scream. My heir, my father's legacy, all of it, a window painted as a door. I wanted to tell you, she said, every year, every birthday, every time you taught him how to tie a tie, I wanted to tell you. But when I saw how you looked at him, I couldn't destroy that. There is a sound a man makes when he understands that the ground he's been walking on is water. Remi made that sound. 17 years, Adaora, he said. Empty. 17 years, and I have no child. I didn't know when I started crying. My phone slipped and hit my knee. I pressed pause, like stopping the sound could stop the truth. For a long time, I sat there, hands shaking. I had gone fishing for a rumor and pulled up a whale that sank the boat. I should have deleted it. I should have buried that video like a body. But curiosity has a cousin called panic, and panic is clumsy. I tried to free space on my phone. I wanted to move the video somewhere safe, somewhere only my conscience could see it. I didn't remember that my cheap cloud app was still linked to an old social account I forgot the password for. While I cooked jollof and stirred too fast, the video climbed the ladder to the sky. By morning, Lagos was awake, and my sin was breakfast. The first call came from a former co-worker. Mary, your name is trending. Did you post something? Before I could answer, my phone exploded with notifications like hailstones on a zinc roof. Screenshots, links. Is this the Peter's house? Is this your account? This can't be real. Then the headlines grew teeth. The Peters empire has no heir. 17-year lie shattered Lagos royalty. DNA bombshell, Daniel, not Remi's son. News anchors used soft voices but hard words. A morning panel argued if inheritance laws should require stricter verification. The board released a statement, transition. Investors fled like birds from a gunshot. Stock dipped, forecasts turned gray. One hotel removed their family portrait from the lobby wall and hung a painting of the ocean like water could wash shame. Daniel became a meme. They called him BB,
billionaire's bastard. Teenagers put his face on TikTok with captions that beat. Adults shared it in church WhatsApp groups with a prayer hand emoji and gossip in their hearts. He was 17 and public property. I thought the worst part would be the truth. It wasn't. The worst part was the laughter of strangers. Messages found me the way flies find sugar that fell on the floor. Which home destroyer you won't see next month. I hope no man ever loves you. I know where you live. Record this one too. A coffin picture with Mary written across it in red. I hid in the servants' quarters for 2 days. Curtains shut, phone on silent, the air heavy with my own breath. When the police arrived, I felt relief like a sick person feels sleep. They put me in handcuffs at the gate while cameras flashed like lightning and neighbors pretended to water plant so they could watch. "Keep your head down," one officer whispered, almost kind. Inside the station, someone had the video playing on a cracked tablet. An officer looked at me, then at the screen, then back at me and said, almost impressed, "So, you're the maid who broke Lagos." They kept me in a small cell that smelled like old raincoats and onions. Nights were long, days were longer. My body learned the shape of cement. A week later, maybe less, maybe more, time there is soup with no salt. They called me into an interview room. Then they walked in, Remy first. Adaora followed, face bare, no powder to cover the night. She looked at me with eyes that had cried everything out and now had nothing left. "Mary," she said, voice small. "Why? A single word can weigh more than a house. I thought I was protecting you. I thought he was cheating. I thought you deserved. Remy's palm hit the metal table and the sound jumped. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked, softer, which was worse. "My son, no, the boy I raised, can't step into a shop without a camera in his face. Our staff are getting calls from strangers. My father's name is the punchline at business lunches. You posted our grief for people to clap." I didn't post. He laughed with no joy. "Mary, grief posted itself through your hands." Adara wiped a tear that had already fallen. "We have lost everything," she said. "Brands, friends, privacy, respect. I can't even buy bread without someone filming my basket. Did you think about that?" No answer I could give would be big enough. How do you tell a woman you didn't mean to destroy her life when her life is already in pieces on the floor? All I said was, "I'm sorry." It sounded like a mosquito in a hurricane. They left. The door closed like a sentence. When you stay in custody long enough, you start to forget your own voice. I stopped talking. I ate because the body insists, but food landed in me like stones. One night, a woman in the next cell hummed a church song my mother used to sing. I pressed my palms to my ears and cried because memory is a thief that steals your present. Eventually, I got bail. There was no victory in the gates opening. I stepped into the sun, and the sun felt like a camera light. I couldn't go back to the quarters. The house had become a museum of shame. I rented a tiny room in Mushin, above a shop that sold phone covers and charger heads. The room had one window that looked at a wall, and one chair that looked at me. I tried to get work. A woman recognized me and said, "Ah, you? The maid who records, my sister, please go." At church, an usher guided me to the back and then whispered that the pastor would prefer if I worshipped online for now. Depression doesn't wear a bell. It sits in your room and becomes the furniture. Days passed like old buses that didn't stop for me. Sometimes the only thing I could do was drink water. Sometimes it was open the curtains. Sometimes, it was walk to the end of the street and back without crying. Months later, I had to go back to the mansion to collect the few things I had left. The guard at the gate was new. He asked my name and then pretended not to know it, even though his eyes had already told me he did. Inside, the house had changed tones. The walls felt taller. The piano had a cloth over it like it was in mourning. The big portraits above the fireplace, the three of them wearing white and smiling into a lake of light, was gone. I folded my uniforms that nobody would wear and put them in a bag I didn't need. On my way out, I stood in the doorway and listened to the kind of silence that rings. That house had held so many dinners, toasts, speeches, boardroom jokes, birthday wishes. Now, it held air.
At the gate, I saw him, Daniel, with an aunt I didn't know. He had lost the soft roundness of boyhood. There was an edge to his jaw that anger sharpens. Our eyes met for one heartbeat. In his, I saw questions I didn't have answers for. He turned away first. I don't think I deserved even 1 second. Let me tell you what I learned so you don't pay my school fees. Not every truth is medicine. Some truth is acid. If you pour it on the wrong surface, it doesn't clean, it burns. A year after it happened, I saw a headline with no names. Board appoints interim chair. Family steps back from public life. That's how newspapers tell you that people have chosen to live smaller. I hope they find a corner of peace. I hope Daniel finds a city where his face is just a face.
People think the worst sin is stealing. Some say it's lying, but I know a quiet sin that looks like concern and dresses like loyalty. Curiosity. It made me press record. It made the truth walk out naked into a street full of cameras. And it made me understand that when truth becomes entertainment, nobody survives, not even the innocent. I wanted to protect my madam. I became the knife that cut through her world. So now, when someone leans close and whispers, "Did you hear?" I shake my head and guard my ears. I have learned to let silence keep its job. Be careful what you expose. Because once truth is unleashed, it does not go back to sleep. It walks, it runs, it becomes a crowd. And crowds don't care who they trample. Mercy is also a kind of truth. The kind that covers, not to hide evil, but to protect love while it heals. Hold your peace like a fragile plate with both hands. Because the day I didn't, Lagos learned my name. And I have been learning how to live with that lesson ever since.